Good morning, fourth graders. Happy snowy morning to you. Thought spring was here, but I guess we had some different ideas and Mother Nature played an April Fool's joke on us. Today we are doing lesson 7-8, which is division, measurement, number stories. There is some multiplication in it. This is page 248. And we're not going to work through all of them today. We're going to try and be cognizant of time and not make this too long, but we're going to work through a few of them. So it says, the fourth graders at Basilone Elementary School voted to hold their spring celebration at a local skating rink. The fourth grade student council is in charge of renting the skating rink and planning the celebration. Help the student council make plans by answering questions below. Again, this is page 248. We're looking at number 1 right now. I'm going to slide it over. And you're going to probably want a piece of scratch paper. So if you don't have scratch paper or something to write on, they don't give us a whole lot of room to write here. You may want to pause and go find one. The skating rink can be rented for a full session or a half session, which is half as long as a full session. A full session is 7 hours and 30 minutes. The student council wants to rent the skating rink for a half session. How many minutes long is a half session? So we know that a full session is 7 hours and 30 minutes. We want to know, because if you were at school, you probably wouldn't rent it for a whole 7.5 hours. You'd probably want to rent the half session. We want to figure out what a half session is, but we want to know what it is in minutes. And what they gave us is hours and minutes. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to change the hours into minutes and then combine to figure out how many total minutes a full session is. So we have 7 hours. How would you turn hours into minutes? Think about how many minutes are in an hour. 1 hour is 60 minutes. So we need to take the number of hours and multiply that by 60. So 7 times 60, that's our first step. And after you do that, then what we're going to want to do is we need to, that's just the 7 hours. We still have this 30 minutes. Now this is where it might get a little confusing for you. I already have the 7 times 60 in parentheses because that's what we need to do first. We're also going to put another set of parentheses which says all of this needs to be done first. You do the first set of parentheses, 7 times 60, then we add 30. Now, if we're doing the whole number model, after we've done that, after we've figured out how many minutes this is, we want to know for a half session. So if we want to know a half session, it's going to be half as long as that. That would mean that we need to take this and divide it by, cut something in half, how many pieces? 2. And your unknown could be m for minutes. Now, when it comes to doing this problem, I don't have a whole ton of space, so I'm going to try and utilize everything I got here. Looking at this, when I do 7 times 60, I'm not going to do 7 times 60. I'm going to do 7 times 6, and I'm going to put a 0 at the end. If that's difficult for you, you could always do 7 times 3 and double it. Because 7 times 3, 3 is half of 6, you could double that. Why don't you solve 7 times 6, don't forget to put your 0 at the end, figure that out right now. Hit pause, solve. Okay, when I do 7 times 6 again, I said you could do 7 times 3, that's 21, double that is 42. That's this step, we've done that. Now we go to what else is in the parentheses. That's plus 30. 420 plus 30 is 450. Now we can do the last step, which is divide by 2. Sometimes kids get a little confused. They look and they go, well, 45 is odd. Well, this is not an odd number. You have to look at the ones place, and the ones place ends in a 0, so it is actually even. To do this problem, we would do 450 divided by 2. And what I look at is I'm just going to look at the 400. And I'm going to think to myself, what times 2 is 4? And obviously that's 2. 2 times 2 is 4. And now if I add 2 zeros in here, I'm going to add 2 zeros out there. I kind of ran out of space, but that's 200. You'll probably have more space on your scratch paper. 2 times 200 is 400. So that can get us to our next step. 0 minus 0 is 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. 400 minus 400 is 0 as well. Well, now it's getting to be a little easier. Now we can just think of this like, what times 2 is 50? And you might not know that. You might have to think to yourself, how many 2's can go into 5? Which is another 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Go ahead and finish this whole division problem. Hit pause and finish it. If you get stuck, hit play and I'll help you with the next step. Add a 0, and subtract. 50 minus 40 is 10. So now I'm thinking, what times 2 is 10? Well, that's 5. 2 times 5 is 10. And we subtract. 10 minus 10 is 0. Our answer is right here on the side. 200 plus 20 is 220, plus 5 is 225. So the answer should be 225. And they don't give us the label, so we need the label. 225 minutes. You're going to have to write that in. So now, moving on to problem 2. This time it says, I'm going to move it down just to put it in the middle. This time it says that it costs $1,250 to rent the skating rink for a half session. The student council has $500 for renting the skating rink. They must raise the rest of the money by selling tickets to the students who attend the celebration. If they charge $6 for each ticket, how many students must attend to make sure they have enough money to rent the skating rink? This is a fairly tricky one. Okay? Because before we do any dividing, we've got to figure out, we know they need this much money. They have this much money. They need 1,250. They have 500. We need to figure out first how much more money they need to get to that. So, if they need $1,250, we're working on a number model with unknown, they need to subtract 500, because that's going to tell us how much more money we need. Once we know that, then we know that however much is left, they're going to sell tickets, and those tickets are $6. We need to know how many tickets they need to sell. 1 is 6, 2 is 12, 3 is 18. How many they would need to sell to get the rest of that money. So the rest of the money needs to be divided by 6, because we need to find out how many groups of 6 they need to make. Your unknown here, you could do D for dollars, you could do M for money, you could do whatever you want, S for skating, it doesn't matter as long as your unknown is a letter. So the first thing that you need to do right now is subtract 1,250 minus or subtract 500. Go ahead and pause me and do that. Okay, so if you were doing that 1,250 minus 500, we start in our ones place. A 0 and a 0. 0 ones minus 0 ones is 0. 5 minus 0 is 5. I can't do 2 minus 5, but I can do 12 minus 5. If you look, if I cross this out, make this a 0, this is going to become 12. But if you just look here, you already have your 12. 12 minus 5. What I like to do is I like to add up. 5, how much to get to 10? If I start at 5, how much to get to 10? Another 5. How many more to get to 12? 2. That's a total of 7. So we need 750 more dollars. So the answer for the parentheses here is 750. Now we need to take that and divide by 6. $750 divided by 6. And again, just look at your hundreds place. And what you're doing is you're thinking, how many 6s can go into 7 without going over? Try that step right now on your own. Hit pause and try. Okay, I know that 6 times 1 is 6, so I can put a 6 right there. If I put 2 zeros in here, I've got to add 2 zeros out here, because 6 times 1 was 6, but 6 times 100 is 600. And that's a big jump. That's why I like to teach you guys to do it that way when we're doing partial quotients, because it gets a big jump for us. And 0 minus 0 is 0. 50 minus 0 is 50. We can think of it as a 5 minus a 0. And 700 minus 600 is 100. So now, the problem that we're solving now, we've done this first part, is 150 divided by 6. But what we're going to think is, what times 6 is 150, or gets us close? And that's kind of hard to do. So instead of trying to get to 150, let's think about how many 6s we can count by without going over 15. Alright? 6 times 2 is 12. I can't do any more than that because 6 times 3 is 18. Fill in this spot with a 0. If I put a 0 there, I have to put a 0 there because it's like multiplying it by 10. 6 times 2 is 12, but 6 times 20 is 120. We subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0. 5 minus 2 is 3. Alright. So now, the real problem is 30 divided by 6, but what we can think is 6 times what equals 30? And that would be 5. 6 times 5 is 30, and we subtract, and we get a 0. To figure out your answer, it's 100 plus 20, that's 120, plus 5, your answer is 125. Now a lot of times the mistake that I see is kids will put a dollar sign in front of that. What you have to do is you need to go back and look at where the question actually is. And the question is, how many students must attend to make sure they have enough? So it's how many students. That's where your label is. It is students. Okay? Alright, we're going to do one more together today, and then maybe we'll do the other ones for review tomorrow. Now Tara is the president of the student council, and she wants to decorate the handrail around the skating rink with balloons. She wants each string tying a balloon to the handrail to be about 5 feet long. If she has 60 yards of string, how many balloons can she tie to the handrail? And this one is probably the easiest one that that we've done so far. So, taking a look at this and we break it down, she has 60 yards of string. She wants them to be about 5 feet apart. And taking a look at this, I don't know what I'm missing here because it doesn't tell us how much string she wants to put on the balloon that I can see. Tara, the president of the student council, wants to decorate the handrail around the skating rink. She wants each string tying the balloon to handrail to be about 5 feet, 5 feet long. Sorry, that was my mistake. I see my mistake here. So what we need to do is we need to change the yards into feet. So if you have 60 yards, 1 yard equals how many feet? This is something that I know that we've talked about numerous times. Each yard is 3 feet. 1 yard is 3 feet. So 2 yards would be 6 feet and so on. So we have to multiply 6 times 30. Then we want them to be 5 feet apart, so you're going to have to divide that by 5 to equal, I don't know, I'm going to do B for balloons. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to do 60 times 3. But don't do 60 times 3. Just do 6 times 3 and add a 0. Go ahead and work that out on your scratch paper. I'm going to work it out over here. When you're ready, hit play. Okay. 60 times 3. I'm going to do 3 times 6, that's 18. Add my 0. So your answer for this should be 180. Now if you look, that 180 takes the place of that. You don't have to cross that out. I'm just showing you that now what this is, 60 times 3 is 180. What we're doing is 180 divided by 5. So we're going to come over here. I'm going to erase this blue so that I have a little bit more room. And we are doing 180. Move it over. I don't think I probably gave myself enough room. 180 divided by 5. And when we look at this, think about it right now like doing 18 divided by 5. How many 5s can go into 18 without going over? You give this a try. Just figure out how many 5s can go into 18. Remember to add your zeros. When I do this, 5, 10, 15, 20, 4 would be too many, so I can only do 3. 5 times 3 is 15, because I was just working with the 18. If I had a 0 there, I can put a 0 there, and I can subtract. 0 minus 0 is 0, 8 minus 5 is 3, and 1 minus 1 is 0 again. Now it's pretty easy. It's just 30 divided by 5. How many 5s can go into 30? That's 6. 5 times 6 is 30, and I subtract. I get 0. So your answer here is 36 when you add. So the answer is how many balloons? 30 balloons is what they can do. All right, so your assignment for today is the math boxes for this section. And I'm going to go over those real quick. Here we go. I'm going to try and cut it down a little bit for you today. For number 1, let's just do A and B. This one you draw as many lines of symmetry as you can. Now a line of symmetry would be like that. This would have a lot of lines of symmetry if it was a perfect square. Okay? It's where it's the same on each half. If you folded it in half, it would line up perfect. Number 3, I think you guys can do A pretty well, so let's just do B. And on number 4, we're adding and subtracting fractions. I'm going to do letter A with you right now, so you're not going to do letter A. We have 73 hundredths. We need to change this to hundredths. So what you're actually doing is you're taking this and multiplying 10 times, or by 10 over 10. Because 10 times 10 is 100, and 2 times 10 is 20. So this should be 20 hundredths. You don't need to add anything to this because it's already hundredths. When we add or subtract fractions, we need common denominators, or the same denominator. So now we can add this. When you add, your denominators stay the same. We're going to have 100, and 73 plus 20. 3 plus 0 is 3. 7 plus 2 is 9. This should be 93 hundredths. Let's have you do B and C today. Okay? I will post the answers and stuff to this. I will post that tomorrow morning. All right, guys, thank you for your hard work. Have a great day.